Hello everyone, and welcome back to another solo spooky story. My name is Rob, and today I'm going to be leading you on a short little journey into the supernatural and all things weird in the world. The way that these episodes work is they're just a shorter episode, one host just talking about something that interests us. Usually they're based on a case that's not got a huge amount of information around it, or is kind of lacking in content that may not have enough to go into a full episode. But on today's spooky story, we actually have quite a bit of information on this, and it did actually take a little while to kind of like suss out what I'd be talking about, what I'm not, and kind of get a cohesive story in place. But I feel like the spooky stories have kind of taken on their own sort of structure now, their own sort of format, and I feel like this fits perfectly in with the shorter stories. So I would advise you all listening to sit down, grab yourself a cup of coffee, even a cup of tea. You know, who am I to judge? Just get settled in to listen to as I discuss this case today, the Beast of Gévaudan. So the Beast of Gévaudan is a name associated with a man-eating animal, or animals potentially, that just plagued a province of Gévaudan in the south of France, in the Margeride Mountains, I think is how it's pronounced. So it's kind of south central France, touching into like lower Alpine region, so very kind of like rugged, forested kind of area. And this happened between 1764 and 1767. So we're going back quite a bit actually in time. The attacks that I'm going to discuss covered an area spanning 90 by 80 kilometers. So we're talking a massive area. Like, this is a huge area that it's covered. And they were said to have been committed by one, potentially more beasts, as I saw them described, that had a kind of a rusty sort of coat, the kind of like brownish orange kind of color, with dark streaks and stripes kind of going down through its coat, and then a dark stripe down its back, and then a tail that was longer than a wolf's, ending in a tuft, according to some eyewitnesses. So anyone listening to this immediately, I do agree it sounds fairly like a tiger, but what I've seen described online is that they kind of emphasize the canine, I suppose, elements to it, less so kind of cat-like. So it was said to basically attack not just individuals but groups of people as well, with its teeth, and would claw at them as well. And I've seen some people say that it was like the size of a calf, but then others have said that it was the size of a cow, which is a large difference in size. Maybe there was adult versions of it that like pups maybe were the size of calves, I don't know, but quite a range of size from calf to cow. And other accounts have said that they believed it was able to fly, or potentially just bound across fields towards its victims. So maybe it appeared like it was flying and it was just moving quite fast, I don't know. But the thought of this kind of flying attack wolf is at the size of a cow is quite terrifying. So yeah, it would bound across fields towards its victims, or whoever it was trying to attack. So kind of at the time, kind of people were even then trying to speculate what this could be. Some said it could have been a lion. Modern people have said that it could have maybe been a striped hyena. Others at the time said that it was a large wolf, a large dog, a wolfhound maybe. Rep in Ireland there. But no one really knows. From what I can see online, it very much so is still a mystery. So let's get into a bit of the background to this and kind of the start of it all. So the Beast of Gévaudan is said to have committed its first attack in the early summer of 1764. There was a young woman who was tending her cattle in the Mercor forest in the eastern part of Gévaudan. She said that she saw a beast, quote, like a wolf, yet not a wolf. And it basically came at her. But she was lucky enough that the bulls that were in the herd charged the beast down and basically kept it at bay. It came back in to attack again, and they drove it off again. So basically the cows were like, nah, fuck you, you're not getting at our person. And it kind of skulked off and went away. But then shortly after this then, in June, so 30th of June I think it is, the beast actually claimed its first official victim. And that's how I just saw it described online. So this first victim was 14-year-old Jeanne Boulet, and she was killed near the village of Les Ubac in the region. So weirdly enough, I saw, as just a side note, she was buried the next day, and she was buried without sacraments, which is kind of like religious rites for anyone that doesn't know. And the reason why is because they said she couldn't confess before her death, which is kind of fucked up. Like this child, like teenager, was not able to defend themselves, was mauled by some sort of animal, and then was buried without any sort of religious rites. But the key thing in this is that the death certificate, I suppose, at the time said that she was killed by a ferocious beast, which seems to suggest that this may not actually be the first victim, but the first that is kind of recorded, I suppose. A month later then, in August, another person was killed, again a 14-year-old, another girl, and it kind of just increases from here then. So moving on then from August into September, more and more victims start being reported. So for the rest of basically the year of 1764, more attacks were reported in the region. And naturally, what came with this? Terror just basically took over the entire area because people were reporting this beast everywhere. Also, it was not discriminating in who it was attacking. It was attacking men, it was attacking women, children, farmers just out tending their livestock, people walking in forests. The entire province was basically on alert. They were terrified of what they were hearing. Weirdly enough as well, there's this kind of, from what I saw online, it said that there was reports that came out that noted that the beast seemed to only attack the victim's head or neck regions, which, you know, it clearly is predator, like it's obviously some sort of wolf or something, or yeah, as we saw described with kind of like canine features. And some witnesses claimed that the beast had supernatural abilities, saying that it could walk on its hind legs and feet like humans, that it could jump like a huge distance up into the air, and also that the beast could repel bullets and come back from the dead after being killed or wounded, which is quite the list of magic powers that it has, which is fairly cool actually. Must have been terrifying at the time though, to be someone who you're hearing about this beast skulking around the area. It can basically like leap into the air, potentially like fly. It's able to, you know, run around on its hind legs like a human, and then on top of all of this, if you shoot the fucker, it's just going to get up and run at you again. So this unstoppable beast basically is just terrorizing the region. So by the end of the year, so December 1764, people then started to say that it wasn't one, but actually two animals that were doing this. And I think it's most likely because of such like the large number of attacks in a reasonably short space of time that people were kind of, I guess, assuming that there's no way this could have just been one animal. And then on top of this, I think some of the records seem to imply that some of the attacks seemed to happen nearly kind of at the same time, but like a large distance apart. So I guess some people now are kind of suggesting that there could have been more than one, and they were also thinking this at the time. So then at the very end of the year then, 31st of December 1764, a bishop in the area, along with a count, in the standard kind of Catholic way, they called for people to pray and for penance. So basically all the priests in the area had to announce this kind of thing to their parishes, and they tried to kind of put a religious thing on it. I think the bishop was implying that this was God basically delivering down wrath on the people that were like unfaithful to the church and stuff like that. Naturally, they saw an opportunity here to get some Catholicism, some kind of Catholic shame thrown in there. So they were quoting verses from the Bible. One particular quote was apparently said by Moses. It was, "I will arm the teeth of wild beasts against them." So kind of implying that basically the people weren't faithful enough and it was their own fault. So I suppose standard kind of religious blaming the innocent. So the people naturally were afraid of this, kind of tried to go for it and tried to pray more, I guess, and be more faithful to God. Funnily enough though, this didn't help at all. The attacks just kept on going. The rate and frequency of them was still the same. So moving then into 1765, in January, Jacques Portefax and 7 children from the village of Villeray were attacked by the beast. Funnily enough though, there was enough of them, so 8 of them. Apparently the beast kept coming in and trying to attack them. They managed to drive it away by staying grouped together. I saw something online saying that they basically had a bunch of sticks and they were kind of like fighting it off. Obviously, you know, defending themselves in some sort of like Roman style battle formation, basically surrounding themselves and driving it off as it tried to get them. Yeah, but basically they managed to survive. This particular attack though, for some reason caught the attention of the king. So it was King Louis the 15th. He actually paid Portefax for surviving. He paid him some money, and then he gave more money then to the children as well, basically as compensation, and was like, fair play to you. And then he also like gave additional awards as well. But then on top of this, he then made this kind of like royal decree that the French state would actually find and kill the beast. So not only was he kind of invested in this now, he was actually saying that the crown's forces basically were going to sort this out once and for all. So like the king believed in this as well. So then going forward, then jumping in another month into February 1765, a 12-year-old girl was killed, and they again noted that she was killed by a man-eating beast that had been ravaging the country. So yeah, this kind of is just ramping up the kind of hysteria and the fear. And at this point then, by like April 1765, so nearly a year after the first attacks, the story of the beast was starting to now spread throughout Europe. People were starting to like panic about it. English journalists saw this as a means to conduct some sort of propaganda war on the French, and they started saying that they were like impotent and they weren't mad enough to be able to kill a dog. So that was a fun time, I'm sure. And so yeah, so people apparently started like sending in like mail to like the villagers and the bishop and stuff like that. So people from all over France, all over Europe were like suggesting, more and more methods to basically be able to kill the beast. And the court then, in kind of seeing how serious this was going, they started issuing like official court depictions of the beast so that everyone basically knew what to look for and that they could use it as a means to like train hunting dogs and stuff like that. So it just completely mental. Going on then, as I said, King Louis XV decided that the crown was going to get involved, and he actually hired a like military captain, and a number of troops were actually sent into Gévaudan to basically sort out this kind of issue once and for all. They were weirdly enough kind of met with some like issues with the people. I don't know what was going on. Maybe they didn't believe them. They're maybe a bit disingenuous and they kind of lost the will of the public. I don't know what it was. But the key thing from this is that the Captain Duhamel, he apparently claimed in like journals and diaries and stuff like that he almost shot the beast on multiple occasions, but that due to the incompetence of his own troops, he missed them or was hampered in some way. So not that he's a terrible shot, it's just, it was other people's problem. I'm sure that's all it was. So yeah, it's super interesting to see like the army actually got involved with this. So when the king could see that this wasn't really helping, he decided to send professional wolf hunters in. They kind of clashed with the military a bit. Ultimately the king forced the military to kind of step down and leave it up to the wolf hunters to do their thing. So they organized like wolf hunting parties, and yeah, it was an interesting time. They were like trying all these different techniques. They were trying to use like stealthy kind of techniques, like hiding in the grass and stuff to try to find it. And they brought like bloodhounds and stuff with them that had been trained in wolf hunting, and basically just like rocked up with all the best equipment. So over a period then of like 4 months, the wolf hunters basically hunted like multiple packs of wolves, and kind of were adamant that regular wolves, Eurasian wolves, were the beast. But the attacks actually continued in the same way. By June 1765, the wolf hunters were replaced by another one. Again, this just kept on going. So by August then, there were like more and more hunts kind of organized, and like women started like banding together to try to form hunting parties as well. They were kind of like traveling in groups as well for protection and such. So like people were starting to like mobilize and be aware of this. Really just kind of a bit mental, I guess. One band of women in particular, they were near a footbridge or something like that, and they were trying to cross a stream when the beast appeared. And then Marie-Jeanne Vallée, she was 20 years old, she apparently managed to stab the beast in its chest with a spear, and the beast apparently like dropped into the river and disappeared into the woods. But they all agreed that she had attacked the beast and drove it into it, the spear into it, but it seemed to survive basically. Moving on then, these attacks just kept on going. More and more people were dying, more and more bodies were turning up being like massacred. I could go on and on and on about the amount, but basically a huge amount of people were dying. So finally then, in 1765 November, an entire month went by with no attacks being reported. So people started to believe that maybe the beast had actually died, and were starting to be a little bit more optimistic that the beast was gone. But unfortunately, on the 2nd of December, 2 boys aged 6 and 12 were attacked by the beast. So people immediately kind of started panicking again, going like, oh my god, it's back. The account of the 2 boys being attacked, apparently the beast ran in and tried to like grab the younger of the boys and tried to take it away, but it was fought off by the older one. So at this point then, apparently shepherds in the area started to say that anytime they saw the beast, they now saw that it had no no fear around cattle anymore and was now able to attack groups even if cattle were there as well. And reportedly in the month of December then, there were 12 more people killed by this beast. So moving into 1766 then, basically as I said, the entire region was panicking. They didn't know what to do, and they were starting to like really, really panic. The attacks were just increasing in volume, and in March 1766 the attacks were like at like their peak rate. Like a lot of people were dying, and there was people starting to suggest that they should start like poisoning corpses of dogs and animals and things like that to try to like poison the beast. And they were basically just trying everything they possibly could to try to deal with the beast. None of them were successful though, which is just insane. So the attacks continued, and then moving into 1767 then the attacks kind of did drop a little bit at the start of the year, but then resumed again in the spring. The population at this point, they just didn't know what to do, so they started to turn to the church. I guess through sheer desperation. So yeah, the killing spree just kind of continued. Finally then, a hunt was organised in June 1767, and a local hunter named Jean Chastel was claiming that he shot and killed the beast in the slopes of a mountainous region, Mont Mouchet, and that he claimed that he had managed to finally kill the beast. So immediately people were celebrating him, and all these stories started to spread that he managed to kill the beast by shooting it with like holy bullets, that apparently he would recite prayers over all of his bullets and pour holy water on them and things like that, and basically managed to kill them with these like blessed bullets basically, which is just insane. Other people said that he made bullets out of like the medals of Virgin Mary's, so that they were actually like religious objects themselves, which is just mad. So yeah, anyway, he claimed to have shot and killed the beast and actually brought a body with him. Basically, yeah, he brought this corpse into town and people were celebrating him, and naturally doctors kind of got involved. They did a post-mortem on the beast. It seems to be the examination was consistent with it being some sort of large wolf or some sort of like wolf dog sort of hybrid, and too much time had basically passed by the time a post-mortem could be done, and the remains were like starting to kind of decay a bit and weren't really in the best state. Kind of this all then just kind of leads into the kind of mystery around it, that no one really knows what it was. So the remains then were kind of naturally shown around to the public. People could see that it was dead. Ultimately, the kind of region then settled. But in one final turn of events, the remains of this creature ultimately became lost. So no one knows where the remains ultimately ended up. Some claimed that it was potentially buried in a garden of some famous aristocrat. Others have said that the king himself had taken the remains, but ultimately no one actually knows. All they know is that by July 1767, the attacks were over, and it was basically confirmed by September that everything was safe. So yeah, this was a really, really fun story. I love this story, and I was just loving reading about this, reading about what was going on in the area, reading about the public just panicking, not knowing what was going on, the kind of religious turn to it, the like supernatural kind of suggestions. Like, it was just very, very fun to review. I really, really enjoyed this story, and I would thoroughly encourage anyone who's at all interested in this to please read up more on it, because I've not done it justice with the amount of stories that are behind this. As I said, this could have been a full episode, but I think this really suits the format of the solo spooky story. So it's slightly longer than usual for these sort of things, but yeah, as I said, this is a really, really fun story, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to it today. So yeah, if you want to listen to more of these stories or to the longer episodes, do consider subscribing on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can get in touch with us on Instagram at the spookyaf pod, or you can reach out to us on Gmail at the spookyafpodcast@gmail.com. If you have anything at all that you'd like to contribute, or you just want to say hi, do get in touch. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the story, and I will catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.